Thank you for being here. Today on the floor of the United States Senate, we are going to have a reckoning for the Republican Party and its relationship with the National Rifle Association. We are going to have two votes on common sense solutions to the problem of gun violence in our country. The first vote will be on whether or not someone who is on a terror watch list should be able to buy a gun in the United States. Right now, in the United States, someone could be denied the ability to fly on a plane in our country, but not be denied the right to buy an assault weapon. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. If you are not permitted to fly on a plane in the United States, you should not be allowed to buy an assault weapon in the United States. Secondly, we will have a vote on Christopher Murphy's amendment from Connecticut. His amendment will say that there has to be a background check that is made on each person who is buying a gun in the United States. If you buy a gun at a gun show, if you go on Instagram to buy an Insta-gun, you must have a background check. We are going to have a showdown on the Senate floor tonight on these issues. It is going to begin the process of political accountability for the Republican Party and their relationship with the National Rifle Association. The American people are demanding that there be restrictions on who can purchase a gun in the United States. After Aurora, after San Bernardino, after Orlando, the American people are demanding that we have restrictions placed upon the purchase of guns. That is what is going to begin this afternoon on the floor of the Senate. It is overdue that this accountability be put in place. It is overdue that this issue becomes a voting issue in a national election in our country. So win or lose, this issue of gun control, of restrictions on who can buy an assault weapon in our country is about to be projected into the presidential and congressional races across our country. And I am about to fly down to District of Columbia in order to cast the vote for the people of Massachusetts. One, to say that if you cannot fly on a plane in the United States, you should not be able to buy a gun. And two, if you do buy a gun, you have to go through a background check, which has been completed. So I'm more than willing to answer any questions that anyone might have. Yes?
Senator, what do you make of the argument regarding the terror watch list, that there's not a lot of control over who gets put on that list, and there are hundreds of thousands of people on that list, and some of them should be able to buy guns?
Senator Feinstein's amendment puts in place a process by which someone can get off of that terror watch list and be able to purchase a gun. But they cannot purchase the gun until they are cleared to buy one.
Is that a legitimate concern?
I think that if someone is on a terror watch list, that they should not be allowed to buy a gun until the FBI and other law enforcement officials have cleared that individual as someone safe to own a firearm.
And do you feel that Republicans are starting to loosen up and possibly be open to some of these amendments tonight?
This is a test of the character of the Republican Party. Thus far, they have been in a vice-like grip of the NRA for a generation. And thus far, there is no evidence that they have had any interest in seeing a release of that grip by the NRA. So no, the amendments which the Republicans are making on the Senate floor are, for all intents and purposes, those which have been drafted by the NRA.
So, Senator, are these votes more about politics and setting this up to be a campaign issue this fall for races around the country?
These votes are about accountability. They're about letting the American people know where their elected officials stand in the aftermath of a massacre in Orlando, Florida, which was preventable, which was avoidable. This is why people run for office. They run for office in order to have accountability on the big issues that the American people want us to vote on and be responsible for protecting their families. When 90% of the American people don't want people on a terror watch list to be able to buy a gun, when 90% of the American people want background checks of anyone who buys a gun, that's not politics. That's public safety. That's public health in the United States, and right now it is not being protected.
Are you familiar with, for example, Senator Kelly Ayod's position up in New Hampshire? Because there's been reports that she is open to possibly the terror watch list.
I don't know.
You don't know. How about Susan Collins? Are you aware?
I haven't heard her.
So you don't think any of the Republicans are showing any indication at this point that they're willing to move and possibly support any of these?
Thus far, I have not seen any proposal which would be consistent with the protection of the American people. Donald Trump says that he's going to talk to the NRA about gun control measures. Donald Trump should go and talk to the families in Orlando, Florida about gun control protections. Donald Trump should talk to the victims' families. He's going to go talk to Wayne LaPierre about what he can support. Donald Trump is the leader of the Republican Party. Donald Trump should say, "You're fired," to Wayne LaPierre. Instead, he says he's going to go to talk to him, Wayne LaPierre, and not the families of Orlando. That's all you have to know about the Republican Party in June of 2016.
Senator, do you agree that non-citizens can purchase guns in the United States, or non-voting citizens will be a part of this somehow?
My feeling is that no one should be allowed to buy a gun that has not been cleared by the FBI or local law enforcement officials. Anyone who they determine is capable of doing that, then they should be allowed to do it, but it should be a law enforcement decision.
Just one more, how do you expect tonight to play out in terms of the voting? It's supposed to start at 5:30, and
we are going to begin having a series of 4 votes at 5:30 this evening. In order for any one amendment to win, they must receive 60 votes. That would require the NRA to permit 14 Republicans to vote with the Democratic amendments. The chances of that happening are 0. The NRA has a vice-like control over the Republican leadership and the members of the United States Senate and the House, so we will not be able to get those votes unless the Republican leadership this afternoon has a change of heart and allows us the permission to be able to get the votes to keep terrorists from buying guns and to have background checks of anyone who is going to buy a gun in the United States.
What do you think this accomplishes then if you think the Republicans won't budge?
Excuse me?
If you think the Republicans won't budge, what does this accomplish?
This is going to be one of the top handful of important issues in the presidential and congressional races of 2016. Donald Trump proudly embraced Wayne LaPierre and the NRA just 3 weeks ago. It's time for the American people to know exactly where each one of his Republican Party members stand in the Senate and the House, and then they should be able to vote on whether or not they want those people to continue to represent them in Washington, D.C. Thank you all so much for being here.